Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 37, the first episode of Season 4 of the Unchained Vodcast. Season 4. It's Season 4. I know, I'm a little overzealous.
And I'm the
Can
one
you believe?
drinking.
He's excited.
I am
And
not
I'm
drinking.
the one drinking.
He's so excited.
We have done 3 full seasons. We're almost up to like 40 episodes of this
Almost.
thing, not counting the podcast stuff we did before this. So, thanks everybody for coming back, for hanging out with us in another season to talk about Camelot Unchained. How is everybody doing?
Pretty good.
I'm as good as could be.
Yeah,
Everybody's so enthusiastic. Oh my god.
Yes.
yeah. Hey, I've been working all day.
Yeah,
So
some of us work
I've been-
today.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that hasn't been working today, so I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
I've had all day to think about doing this and get ready and be like, "Rrr." Everyone else is like, I just got to work.
Yep.
I'm limping from the war.
And that's why I have alcohol.
Because of work.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And because
What
I
are
live
we
in the
talking
UK.
about?
we've had a 2-month break, which I'm glad everyone has come back. We've got 13 people on show so far. Thank you for coming back to hang out with us and talk about the game. I won't lie, I needed the 2-month break, especially
We all did.
I was getting stressed out with all the delays of Beta 1 and everything. I think a lot of people have been. And if you're getting stressed with that, I will recommend taking a break. It feels good. I feel better. Rejuvenated. Still perhaps a little irritable, but mostly rejuvenated.
I guess it helps when you miss some of the streams on Friday too, and you don't hear the things
Yeah.
that you were hoping to hear.
I've been very busy, so I don't think I've made the last 3 weekly wrap-ups.
I haven't
fortunately, they
made-
send out emails, so
Yeah, I haven't made yesterday's. I've made the previous ones, but I haven't made yesterday's.
yeah.
I
I've
catch
had
them when I
all
can.
kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
So here we are, episode 37, new season. We have like 11 or 12 episodes lined up to do over the next couple of months. And today we are talking about
Today.
achievements and hardcore gameplay. Essentially, how do they craft the gameplay? How can they shape the game to make people feel achieved in game, to make people have things to strive for, not just, enigmatic things to do, but to really feel accomplished in the game, because I think that's sometimes hard to do in an open world RVR type game. So that's what we're going to talk about. And to just go ahead and get into that with chat, with you, what would you define as achievement in an RVR MMO?
Destroying the other factions.
Yeah, when not dying, in a fight, or
Yeah.
taking over a keep. If there's objectives in the game, clearly defined objectives, meeting those requirements and being the winner of those objectives.
Yeah.
In more specific terms, probably taking over islands in sea. Definitely. Gaining terrain on the other factions.
Yeah, for myself, I think the concept that a lot of this wraps up into, to a certain degree, but expanding on them a little bit, is lasting impact. For me, like, if you capture a keep but it doesn't mean anything, it's not an achievement. So capturing a keep has to be something that's difficult, time-consuming, and has, you hold that keep for a long time. It's something that has impact. Same thing with taking an island, with doing other objectives and things in the game. You really need to have some sort of lasting importance to the achievement in order for it to be an achievement. Sakaric says, me taking the guild keep, titles,
Yeah, definitely.
things like that you can get that, again, are lasting symbols. I think symbols can really fall into that category as well. Ways to represent what you've done. Holding places of power, certainly.
Yeah.
Finding
So I
new
think those are
ones,
good.
hidden ones.
Possibly.
Possibly
Winning in
creating
the
one.
depths. I don't know if
'Cause
you'll be able to win in the depths, but
Well, controlling
after
the
a
depth.
fashion, yeah.
Yeah, controlling the entrance to the depth.
And some of that's kind of created by people's minds as well. I mean, for instance, if you take goes back and forth taking the depths, but you hold it longer than anyone else does.
Yeah.
You can call that as achievement for yourself. Oh, we held it for like 2 months. No one else has done that.
Yeah.
Reaching Camelot.
That's a big one. Yeah. I mean, that seems to
That's
be the
kind
point
of,
of the
that-
game.
that's kind of the end goal. Yeah.
Winning the game, just winning everything.
Pretty much.
Just epic winning.
Kind of on that
But then
same.
you have the personal ones also.
That's what
that
my
you
next
can
question was going to be: is what would you strive for as kind of personal, just for yourself, like personal achievements in a game like that?
It's harder with a game that has mostly horizontal progression to set up achievements, because it's much easier if the progression is vertical. For me as a crafter, it would be making epic items, basically. Mastering one aspect of the crafting. Just getting a monopoly on one type of of crafting item. But yeah, mostly commercial ones, and discovering new resources, new alloys, being the first to discover new alloys and things like that.
Unlocking the components for abilities, getting to that point where you've unlocked them all. You don't start with them all. You do unlock them over time, and once you got to that point, that's a personal achievement that you've played long enough, you've used your abilities long enough that you've unlocked all those component elements.
Master level in your class, sort of thing.
Yeah,
and they can certainly add,
depending on how easy it is. Yeah,
and they can certainly add titles and things along those lines to go with your classes, where you've unlocked all the abilities and you get like a title or something notable for doing that, having played that long and played that much. I'm not really a very... My personal achievements are kind of group achievements, so I kind of cheat on this question because I'm not really I will freely admit I'm not a really hardcore player, so for me, I'm not really driven towards personal achievement as much as I am group achievement. And more importantly, or more so, achievement for my guild. So for me, it's more establishing guild reputation, having the guild be known throughout the realm, even across servers, having a stable schedule of activities that other people can take part of that help us defend and take keeps, all that kind of stuff. That for me is achievement that they can't really build, I guess, in the game, but they can build the tools to help to facilitate that, which is kind of a slightly different angle. Let's see here. I agree, Sacrix. A lot of things will probably be cosmetic, and
and fluff.
I think I have some notes on that at some point.
But
I think
at the same
a
time,
lot of MMOs.
Some achievement. Let's be honest. A lot of MMO players are achievement whores. I know I am. Having achievements for doing things in PvP, killing a certain amount of TDDs or a certain class, taking over a certain type of place of power, things like that, are things that being the first ones. That's the one thing, at least in terms of hardcore play. I like the idea of having a title being the first one to do it, because it pushes people to go PvP, but it also pushes the hardcore PvPer to really focus on those things and making that achievement an end goal. Because let's be honest, we all thrive on EPN in MMOs. We all do.
We do. Even myself, I'm not a terribly hardcore player, but I like to have the biggest and best. I want the biggest keep. I want the best kill streak. I want to be able to look at other people and go, you're peons. But
I kind of like the random. There's still flavor achievements. They're just random things that you've done that are probably very coincidental and not necessarily easy to do, like kill a lubricant with fire in a forest, or some random thing like that that you just happen to perform with the right set of consequences.
Something really hard to perform, but that just can happen, but is very unlikely to happen.
And
for me,
actually,
the one achievement I want is being the guild that established the first player-built city. That's the
kind of
one
a thing
achievement
that's
right now.
more from the minds of the players, really. That I don't expect them to necessarily build that into the formatting, the programming, the game, but it's an important thing. To kind of go, Zacharick's comment about the combat really transitions us to my next point, because I agree there are several different types of achievements to talk about. First are personal achievements, which is why I kind of opened with this. They're the easiest, they're the fluffiest to talk about. What things make you feel good as a player, and everybody likes to do, and everyone kind of wants to be able to do in the game. The second part of that is the combat systems, the content of the game itself, and the engagement. What are the top tier MMO players really looking for in the game content and the design of the game? I think top thing, of course, is competitiveness, for which you need balance of some sort. Obviously, there's no perfect balance in the universe of gaming, but you have to have some level of balance in order to really have competitiveness.
Well, I do think to an extent, like, the achievement for that competitiveness level has to have structure to it, generally, and usually that structure comes in the form of like an arena type system where there's an actual reward system, which is in and of itself the achievement. Outside of that, it's very difficult to assign achievement. It becomes just self-worth at that point, self-entitlement. If you don't have a structure in place to support it already, it's just a guild and another guild fighting at a random place. The winner feels achieved.
Well, yeah, but again, if you look at a lot of games, at least older ones, not so much the newer ones, because you had a very structured achievement system. In a lot of games, older games, DAOC, EverQuest, Anarchy Online, all those games, the achievements were not game-based achievements. It was community-given achievements, as in recognized by the community, which for many people, myself included, is something that is worth much more than the game-given achievements. Because let's be honest, the community is a much harsher judge than the mechanics that the game put in place. Just kill 1,000 rats, you get the title. Yeah, fine.
Rat killer.
You need having the other guilds in the realm maybe not acknowledge that you're the best guild, because certainly they don't want to do it. They're reluctant to do that. But acknowledge that you're dangerous, that you are an opponent worthy of fighting. I think that's the type of achievement most really committed players really want. To that individual achievement. That guy is one of the best Black Knight players in the entire game, acknowledged by the community. Or at least some parts of the community and stuff. And that guild is they have the most area. They organize the best battles and everything. They really are hard to defeat. That's the kind of acknowledgement people want, and that's not something they can structure in the game. But I do agree with Brand that there are things that they can do. Obviously not arena in this context, but there are things they can do within the system
Don't do that.
that are fluffy.
Yeah, no.
That are fluffy, but they help to acknowledge some of those things. This guild tore down the biggest keep the servers had, or they've held this particular place of power for some length of time, or something. There are certain ways they can acknowledge things.
And I think part of that is being public about the ownership of buildings or lands, if you're capable of assigning an ownership to it, a name or even a guild name, so that people know. For
crafters, it's a lot easier, because you are going to have the crafter marks. So being known as the go-to guy for, say, a two-handed sword or a one-handed sword or a polyarm, that's an achievement in and of itself, and you don't need a title for that. Just that the players are going to go to you. You have a polyarm by Kriss. Great. I want one, but there's like a 2 weeks waiting list because it takes time to craft it. Things like that. That's an achievement, but that doesn't need to be an achievement given by the. You can have the title Master Polyarm Crafter, but then this title is meaningless if the community considers your stuff shit.
That may have on this screen name.
Every
but,
time.
You know,
Yeah.
Sacrix is also onto a good point. Like I've said, there's some enigmatic and roundabout ways to apply achievement within the structure of the game. I think bounties are another way that they can do that. You know, if you have a lot of enemies putting bounties on you, you know you're either doing something really right or something really wrong. One of the two.
Depends who puts the bounties. Your realm
never
or the
seen-
other.
A bounty system really work though, and I really want one to
That's
work.
true.
I really want it to be the way you think it should work, but it's so difficult to do that.
I admit,
I like the
have
idea of
had
realm
difficulty seeing it
being
working
able to
in
put a
CU.
bounty on people from your realm either. That would be also an achievement. The biggest asshole on the server. His whole realm collected money to put the biggest bounty on his head.
Yeah, the bounty system. I don't want to go too much into bounty systems because
Yeah.
they're kind of
As an achievement.
aside here,
Yeah.
but I do agree that it's a difficult thing to see really work out for a lot of MMOs, and I've had trouble seeing it really pan out for this game as well. I am hopeful, but it often comes back in my mind to, but why would anyone bother? The only thing I can think of sometimes is maybe incentivizing like the soul collection, like I really want someone's soul for a crafting mat or something. Then maybe
That could be cool.
or to help organize pugs. You know,
I mean,
you
that-
target a specific keep or something and go, we're putting a bounty on this keep, and then to help organize pugs into going and attacking it.
That could be a form of achievement with the soul thing. You said if someone good enough was capable of defeating a very well-known enemy, say TDD person, and collected their soul and infused it into a weapon, you can show off the weapon like, I have this person's soul in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we took them down. They can be killed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's also like something they can borrow from FPS games is, you know, killing your killer. You have somebody that killed you in a battle recently, and being able to come back and get the revenge kill. That always feels satisfying. It's not really
especially
a
if they
long-term
have your
thing,
soul imbued in an item.
Oh, especially that would be great, actually.
Killed you with your own soul.
They did say that you will see on the battlefield if somebody has a piece of equipment with your soul in them, it's going to show for you. You're going to be able to see it.
Killed me with my
Now-
own soul.
Yep.
Another question I had is tied to this is what other gameplay elements do you think really support a level of achievement and support those type of players in the PvP RVR environment?
Well, I think one, and I hope it doesn't turn out this way, is the solo game. A lot of players get a kick out of, being able to 1v X amount of number of people.
Yeah.
And this game so far is being publicized as not being able to do that too well,
Yeah.
but there's still the possibility, and I hope that
Yeah.
that there's the balance goes in a way that no class can get that kind of satisfaction.
Mhm.
So that players don't strive to do that, because it can get
That also fosters that flavor of the month class and skill sets that then
Mhm.
everybody goes to.
Yeah, the balance needs to be focused on groups, and I think that's what they're doing is trying to focus on having a group be balanced. And I don't have a problem with some classes being able to solo,
Yeah.
and do okay, but that's doing okay, not killing tons of people.
Yes.
You might be able to survive solo. If a bunch of people jump you, you can escape, but that's different from
Killing them all.
killing them all.
Yeah.
That's certainly not something I think we want in the game, because that, I think,
Yeah,
balance-wise,
that's
is terrible.
the opposite achievement of what I'm hoping for.
For me, balance is in there as a core thing. I think
Yes.
obviously you've got to have a certain level of balance and group versus group balance.
Mhm.
I also think that, as Sacrix mentioned, Zerg, You certainly can't ever have a way to totally demolish Zergs and prevent them from being a problem. They're always going to be an issue. But I think having Zergs, there's a certain level of power that Zergs can have in a game. The more that they can reduce the power of the Zerg in the game, the better it's going to be for competitiveness and for that level of achievement.
But at the same time,
the easier they are
Zergs.
to address.
There will always be Zergs.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And one balanced for me as a hardcore player that will appeal to me is that a smaller group, well organized and knowing their classes inside and out, can take out and demolish a Zerg twice their size, basically.
And that's an achievement in and of
Yes.
itself. That's a good feeling.
Certainly.
So
we have a couple people in our gaming community from the origins back in Hand of Set that still like to go on about defeating 3 guilds versus our 1 guild in our keep, blah 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 blah, and I'm like. On the one hand, you're like, okay, old man. On the other hand, though,
awesome.
I mean, that's the sort of thing that you remember from playing a game. You're like, that one time we took
those
on
stories.
there were like the 50 of us took on like 100 and so people, and we just demolished them. No, that's not going to be every battle with a Zerg. Of course not. That would be ridiculous. But in the battle where you have all the really good players and the people with the best gear, and you manage to take those numbers of people out because it is, even if not likely, it is feasible in the game. That's the stuff you remember.
Yeah. I think another achievement in the combat sense of things is if you can really play as interactively as the air system is supposed to let you, to being able to set up these interesting combos that form, if you have this thought in mind, like we're going to put this fire here and we're going to do this here when they come rushing through, and to see it actually work the way you were hoping it worked, awesome. I think that'll be cool the way all of these interact. You can really mess with the field like that.
I agree.
Yeah, really, there are a couple of different things that I think it comes down to for overall tactics, just strategy. I think having how you play the game, the way having group composition really matter, where you maneuver and position yourself, what abilities through air you use in conjunction with each other really matters, and towards feeling that sense of achievement. Because if all that stuff is really kind of complicated and important, the people who are really dedicated to mastering that are there are people who are really going to be committed to mastering that. But in order to do that, I think there are some things you have to have. Like, you have to have a decent amount of balance. You have to have Zergs not be ridiculously crazy powerful like they are in some games. You got to reduce night capping, because obviously if you cap something and they come back and cap it at night when you can't use your good group composition and stuff, you're just like, well, to hell with this game. I'm losing everything.
Then again, as Skylar says, there will, no matter how hard you try to balance things, there will be a meta.
Oh yeah.
That you will need to master to be able to be effective. But at the same time, mastering the meta, being the first one to do that and recognizing it and setting it up is in itself also a sort of achievement.
Yeah, and there's always a new meta. I mean, you set up one, they tweak things, and then someone else has to find a new one. And that's something that I think draws hardcore players as well. They want to learn the meta. They want to figure out what the best strategies are and the best group comp.
Definitely.
One other thing that I think goes to that and helps to transition to my next question a little bit is guild keeps. I think that, first of all, guild keep is an achievement in and of itself for a whole group of people, but also it creates opportunities for other achievements and other focuses for combat. Other people want to take down your keep. You want to fight off people and keep it up. You want to keep it supplied. They want to cut off your supplies.
Make it bigger.
That's one of the big things.
Nobody ever took Helm's Deep. We will do it.
Yeah, that's one of the main things about the game that gives me the most hope for the RVR system is players being able to build their own keeps. Because I think that's the biggest avenue for generating the competitiveness and the RVR. it depends a little bit on what the keep looks like. That's possibly true.
Yeah, we don't want that keep.
No.
That one's ugly. We can leave it there. They can have their ugly item keep. I don't know.
Or it's actually an incentive. Look at that fucking ugly keep. We're
destroy
just gonna raise it.
We should burn it. 'Cause
Just
it's ugly.
level it.
We destroy the ugliest keep on the server. The other question, really my last question on this topic, is what do you think about crafting goals? I mean, we talked a lot about RVR and PvP, but what are crafting achievements that can appeal to the really hardcore dedicated crafters? And Kriss has already kind of opened on these a little bit, but I'd like to spend a little bit of time on that as well, because the game's not just RVR.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Kriss?
Well,
It's all you.
at first, I'd say since it's based on your realm prestige, having the most prestigious store location, is an achievement.
Yeah.
But that's an end goal, because you should only be able to achieve that, like being close to the king's keep, to the king's court, only if you master one of the elements of the crafting. That's one of the achievements, being the first to discover a certain amount of alloys, since it's gonna have to be discovered at first.
Mm-hmm.
Being the first to master one type of crafting, or being able to actually master two of them, since they said that you will have a soft cap, but there is no hard cap. You might end up 3 years down the road being able to master two parts of the crafting at the expense of all others. So you're hindering yourself in pretty much everything else. But being the one that can actually make those two the best is something that, as a crafter, is very appealing.
Yeah.
And then you have the money. The next one I was about to say is being the first to achieve a big amount of money in your bank, or selling the most expensive item, something like that. That's the kind of achievements as a crafter that are really interesting. Achieving the first to fully customize your Vox, also.
As you mentioned earlier, of course, there's the maker's mark as well on your items you produce, having the most desired items, having the best spear in the game, or whatever, that you tend to make. That's all really important stuff. It's a little bit of a contentious issue, because we talked about it on one of the episodes last season, but I still think that there should be really rare, like really epic items that you can potentially produce that are very uncommon and very rarely ever happen. And I do think that producing something like that, one of the reasons I think something like that should be produced is not just because of the enjoyment that players will get from it being like, I have the one spear that no one else has until it breaks. It is epic. But also, somebody be like, I made the one spear that no one else has made. It's not going to last forever, but it's the one thing that's really freaking cool, and it's awesome.
Yeah. See, and I think all of those things require requirements. They need a set of rules to make them so unique, and not just this RNG drop that you happen to get through going through the depths. There needs to be still a structure, like I said earlier, to that achievement in finding either that the pattern or the mats to make it, or to know that there's an exact thing that you have to do, or more than one thing that you have to do to get this built.
And as we said, they hinted on it. We don't know if it's going to be confirmed or be in the final game, but actually taking risks, crafting the item, that you need to actually put your scale all the way into quality, at the risk of breaking some elements of your Vox, having a critical failure that actually damages you and kills you. Because you had I think it was in DAOC, that critical failure for a crafter could kill you. But elements like that actually make it a real achievement, not just, I spent a week crafting that thing. Okay, fine. It's just a time sink. it has to have a risk also for the crafter, having to go deep, like having to have materials that cannot be traded. That so you have to go deep into enemy territory to gather them yourself,
Mhm.
and not being able to just buy them.
Yeah, and I think
Things like that.
I don't want Skylar to get me wrong. I'm not saying that something to be the most amazing epic spear has to be completely one-sided and there's no negatives to it. It can be the highest damage spear in the game and it still has some cons to it as well, but it would
Yeah.
still be desirable.
Yeah.
Personally, I would actually rather see something like that that is so rare that you can't really intentionally try to build it. Like you can try to make the best spear, but you can't. You're not just grinding spears, going, "I really want to get that one thing," because it's so unlikely to happen that there's no point in just grinding, especially when it takes a week to make the best spear. Because the normal spear you make is already going to be good or really great, depending on what you're doing. I would almost rather something like that still requires, like you said, really rare mats, but the things you're producing when you're not getting that super amazing thing is still good. It's still something you're gonna make and sell, and you're gonna give it to people to use. I don't want people wasting time. I don't really want people wasting time trying to make something mythical. I would rather it be super uncommon.
You need all the rare mats, and you need to make it underneath a full moon on this night in this island with the blood of your enemy as ingredients.
More than one crafter. It might need more than one crafter working on your Vox.
That's possible as well too. I mean, you could go another way with it, where you can try to do it, but it's like a group. It's like a group thing.
Yeah.
There's some different ways to go about it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Thing, so.
I would hate for it to be RNG. I want something that is worth making, but so hard to make that it's not worth making a lot of them. So it stays something mythical, something hard to get. Like at the beginning, it changed after a while, but at the beginning in EverQuest, the epic weapons for each class were months worth of mob farming, raiding, questing, crafting. It was something truly epic that when you had it, it was a real achievement. And having something like that in CU where you arrive on the battlefield and people see that you have that kind of item, first it makes you recognized, and two, it makes you a target. Because they want to kill the guy who has that kind of weapon.
Yeah. Well,
that makes for also more interesting PvP.
Like I said, there's other ways to go about it too. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be super rare RNG. They could also have it be, or I should say, it has to be RNG no matter what. I don't care what anybody says. It has to be random. Whether it's crafted random or the drop for the rare map that makes it is super random, either way, there's RNG somewhere. Because otherwise, everyone's going to be making them all the time. They're just going to be farming the mats. So I think there is another way to do it. They can hide the RNG by just making it so that there's a super rare mat you need to make it, and then you have to go and find it and get it from the depths or whatever, and only one spawns every month or something, and then you find it, and you're like, oh, I got the golden egg, and you make and then you spend 2 weeks as a group to make the item or something. They can do that. Either way, it's one type of a crafting achievement. There are obviously other ones, like again the Guild Keep example. That's a crafting achievement too. The whole guild's crafters have come together and built something glorious just for me to have a chair.
I think part of that achievement needs worth though too. We keep going back to balance, and there needs to be a balance in the stats in what you're making. If it takes you a month to make it, it really has to reflect as being worth it. But at that point, is it too much of an imbalance if it's clearly advantageous over everything else?
Well, it has to be worth it spending a month building it, but it could be being a month not actually building it, but building and then upgrading it. Because you don't have to have, when they used to build castles, they didn't build the whole castle and then at the end put the front door. They just built a keep and then expand on it. So you could your end product could be months worth of work, but you still have a functional keep that can be fought over by other guild at the beginning in say a couple of days or a few weeks or a week or two. And then at the end, if you manage, that's also could be an achievement, because if you just build your keep, you spend a month building your keep on the back lines, that's not an achievement.
Yeah,
That's being a coward. If you spend a week building a keep on the front lines, defending it while you're expanding it, and then at the end of the month you have your frontline player built castle that is extremely hard to take. That's the achievement. That's not building, spending a month ferrying stuff to the back line and making your castle there.
As Bram was saying, I mean, I agree. You have to have balance in everything you're working on. That goes back to the game's not going to be competitive. It's not going to be challenging unless there's some level of balance to things. And whether it's a keep, you're building keep walls, they have to be balanced against the siege. Whether you're building gear, and to kind of argue again with Skylar a little bit here. Again, as I've said, balance is essential. Just because I'm saying that someone might be able to make a single mythical amazing weapon, that doesn't. I didn't assign any value to that. I didn't say that it's numerically 3 times better than the best spear you can get otherwise in the game. Obviously, the item still has to be balanced. Just because it's the best item in the game for whatever particular thing you're looking at, it may have the best damage. It may have the best attack speed by a notable amount.
Extremely fragile and can break.
Even as I said earlier, that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have cons as well. It may have the best damage, and it fits a character that wants a weapon that's slow and has the best damage. And is better than any other slow high damage weapon, but that doesn't necessarily mean again that it's going to be running around one-shotting people or anything. It still has to be fit within the game's scalability of power, but it also has to be worth the rareness that the item is.
Yes.
And I think one of the important parts for that also is going back to what I said about group balance. The game has to be balanced, in my opinion, for group against group. An individual player doesn't matter. How powerful he is only matters in what power he confers to the group or against a group of players. So a single player certainly needs to have good skill and good gear and everything, but they also need to be able to work with the group.
And they need to have synergy.
Yeah, you can't have a single player being powerful enough to run around and wipe out a whole group. That's in my opinion, that's just going to break the game. It's not going to be.
Yeah, you can't have the equivalent of an ESO Emperor in ECU.
No, that's garbage.
Yeah,
I like the idea.
Also,
I like the idea behind the title and all that stuff that they tried to do with that game, but the mechanics of it were awful.
Yeah, no. And what Skylar said about the fact that it can be insignificant. Yeah. What Vellic said was it doesn't have to be insignificant. A mythic weapon is still a mythic weapon. It just can't be an all-powerful weapon. Yeah. So it will be in its stats the best it can be, not the best in a general sense of words, not the best in slot, basically, but the best it can be with the parameters you set for it.
For the particular character that would use that style of weapon, and that's kind of what I'm getting at with the group focus. I think that by having the game balanced on group v group, you can have one character on an entire battlefield that has a mythic weapon that does a pretty significant amount of damage compared to other top tier weapons, and it doesn't matter that much because their armor is still the same. They're still going to get shot down. The weapons don't confer stats, so their armor and their health are still going to be the same as everybody else. They can still get blasted down. They can still get killed, whereas the entire battlefield, that one epic weapon isn't going to make that much of a difference.
It will make a difference in the area he's fighting in. Yeah. So in one of the parts of the tides of battle, it will make an impact, not in the whole balance itself.
Yeah.
If a single person can have that much influence just over having one really good weapon in a group,
things are bad.
The game's balance is pretty messed up.
Like Skyrim.
Well, again, that's kind of my point. Is it needs to be rare enough that multiple people don't have it. That's kind of the entire
and
point
even
of
if
having it as an
multiple people
achievement.
have it, if it's a best in slot, even if multiple people have it, it doesn't mean that it will have a hugely significant impact. Say you have the best damage weapon. That means it's the sharpest weapon of that type that can be done. At the same time, the sharpest weapons are the one that blunt the most easily and the fastest. So it can either break more easily or get
Good.
blunt more easily. So
Require more
after you
repair.
swing it a certain amount of time, the damage will reduce. Yeah, it's going to reduce slower than another type of weapon because it's epic. But at the same time, it still has its drawbacks. It's since the system of weapons and armor is very particular to CU. We haven't experienced that in any other game as far as I can remember. So having the item having its own stats, you cannot make the best in slot. It's not possible because it doesn't confer you your more stats.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can swing it correctly, yeah, you're gonna have more impact than if you had the most basic weapons. But it still has its drawbacks. So it can be rare, very valuable, but it will never be all powerful.
And I will say, certainly there has to be a level of balance in how rare an item is as well. Something can be really rare to where there's only ever one or a handful of weapon items at that tier in the battlefield at any given time.
Yeah.
You know, they have to balance how rare it is versus how rare they want it to be versus the balance of the game and everything and the economy and all that kind of stuff. That's certainly something that they have to decide on what's best for the game. But I don't think it would ever be something that's gimmicky. I wouldn't think that the one crafter who makes that once a month or however often it is would feel that it's gimmicky when they produce it. And I don't think that the one or two players on the battlefield who have something of that tier would feel it's gimmicky when they're running around with, the freaking... when they're running around with this freaking all-powerful spear. Well, not all-powerful, but a really mythical, powerful spear or something. I don't think they're going to find it gimmicky. And that's kind of the point. I mean, because if you make it too common, it's not an achievement to make it.
Yeah.
Or to
as Skylar said, people will always pay more as long as the numbers on the items are higher. Yeah. No matter if it's more powerful in general or not. If the numbers are higher and the perceived power of the item is more, they will pay more.
I think the key thing for that balance and the level of rarity is just investment in time. You know, no new person or a brand new fresh character, even from someone who's been playing for years, is not going to just log in on this new character and start wielding this thing. They're going to have to invest to get it or to make it themselves. Yeah. And that investment is the achievement.
Yeah, I think for crafters, I'm not really a crafter, but from the way I view it, how I would feel if I were crafting things, I think, is there need to be multiple tiers of achievements at the high level progression for crafters. If you're a high level crafter and the best item you can really make is generally just pretty level, and this is it, you're just crafting the standard sword and going, this is the standard high tier sword, blah 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 blah. There you go, have fun. I think there should be tiers of that. There should be the standard, which is really good, but then there should be one that's a little bit better than that in whatever it does, whatever it specializes in, and then maybe there can be ones that are increasingly rare, but better tiers. You know, they don't necessarily have to be all right there in that thin margin. The better it is, the more rare it has to be.
It's a very fun topic.
I don't agree with you, Skylar, at all on that. I think
I'll let you disagree. You're our crafter, so.
No, but I don't agree with the fact that a crafter that isn't able to make that weapon will find it gimmicky.
I think he's just saying
as long as it's a realizable goal. Yeah, it's a very hard goal to get, but if it's a realizable goal, they will not find it gimmicky. They will work. If you're a hardcore crafter, you will work towards making it. Otherwise, you're just a casual, and that's fine also. But you'll never make it.
Yeah,
that's it.
And honestly, I think there are a lot of things in games that not everyone necessarily agrees with. There are things that some people in MMOs, for crafting or otherwise, think is a waste of time, and other people don't think is a waste of time. Kriss loves chasing every achievement in the game. I think that's a massive waste of time, and I don't want to do it. I'm not going to go kill 1,000 turkeys just to get the achievement for it.
I will.
Exactly. I think that's stupid. And so while you may think that crafting that one thing or having people strive to do that is gimmicky and stupid, well, I'm sure there are other people who won't.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the topic. The whole idea of the topic is
topic also
ideas.
One thing I'd like to mention also, which is I like the idea of not everybody being able to achieve those achievements.
I agree.
It's been the trend in the newest game that you can have all achievements, especially if you pay for them.
There's an achievement to get more achievements.
Yes.
So, it has to be open.
I'm okay with having achievements that I can never get. As a crafter, I'll never get any of the combat achievement. I will have to make a combatant character to get them. But if you decide you want to be a crafter, I don't see a reason for you to be able to get the combatants achievements.
Yeah.
And if you're a casual crafter, I don't see a reason for you to be able to get the hardcore crafter achievements. It's okay if you can't have all the achievements in the game, unless you want to work for them. But then you become a hardcore player, or an achievement chaser. That's fine too. But you need to, people and gamers need to reconcile with the idea that you cannot have all the achievements in a game. Otherwise, it's just catering to casuals, and that's the error most of the recent games have done. Or the Credit Card Warriors, but that's another issue.
I actually go a little bit farther in that, I think, than you do, which is I think even within your own gameplay style or class, everyone's experience should differ a little bit in order to make a truly enjoyable gameplay experience. The game should be random enough. The game should be differing enough that your gameplay experience can differ enough. That maybe there are achievements and things in the game that you can't do. Or not that you can't do, but that you may not ever see. So maybe there are things that, as an archer, there are certain things that I want to do that some people could do or achieve that I may never do because I never encountered it, or I wasn't lucky enough to get it. I wasn't lucky enough to find this really cool item. Their old school games used to have this all the time. There would be a rare drop that almost no one would ever get, and one person would run around the server with it, and everyone's like, oh, I burn with envy. And that guy's like, I'm amazing, I have this thing, it's cool. And new games don't do that anymore because everyone wants the best sword. In my opinion, I think if you're a crafter, maybe and you specialize in swords, maybe there should still be some swords that you may not ever manage to actually craft, or some effects you never figure out.
Unless
same
you
thing
spend
for other classes.
Unless you spend a couple years specializing in even deeper, as deep as you can get in terms of sword crafting, to get this particular, the one sword that is only achievable if you basically close yourself out to any other path.
Yeah,
you sacrifice things to get that achievement.
I don't have a problem with RNG. Everyone else in chat seems to have a problem with RNG. I'm problem
with the level of RNG.
Exactly. I have a problem with RNG that dominates the game, especially looking at like Korean and Asian MMOs. The level of RNG those tend to have is ridiculous.
Yes.
But a little bit of RNG here and there to determine if you make or find a really epic rare item or something, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, that's cool. No. I think that's fine.
In fact, if done right, it can actually further other achievements, like we talked about how some of them mingle and interact together. I remember in SWTOR, a good example of that is the world boss on Belsavis dropped, if not the color crystal, an ingredient to make a specific color crystal for a specific color of lightsaber that was almost unseen, and guilds camped the crap out of that boss, which spawned like every 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever. And there was a lot of PvP there on an otherwise dead PvP server or an otherwise dead PvP game. it spurred open world PvP, and I remember being involved in a lot of really fun fights there because someone wanted a different colored lightsaber.
Yeah.
And not everything has to be stat based. Not everything has to be damage based. I will go through great lengths for awesome cosmetic items.
Yes, definitely.
That's actually the kind of thing I'm actually a little bit more likely to go after than the sword. Than a super rare sword that does 3 extra damage. I'm like, no, screw that. I want the cool cape.
Yeah, and the RNG part of that is it didn't always drop when you killed the boss. Like you had to farm it.
Yeah.
Purple flavored lightsaber.
I don't think it was a purple one. It could have been, but.
And I tend to agree with Skylar. I do think that they can go a little farther with RNG and stuff when it's something cosmetic than they can for actual important combat-based items. I still think a level of RNG for those is fine. It just depends on the impact the item has on the economy in the game and everything. But for cosmetic items, they can totally just do almost whatever they want. Though there is a certain level where if you make something ridiculous to get, it's rage-inducing because everyone, especially as a cosmetic item, I think there is a tendency for people to be like, well, I want to be able to have most cosmetic items, and if most of them are super hard to find, then you're just like, hell with this.
If you're going to make generic items that have
monocles. Different
potentials, RNG, I can see that they did it even in SWTOR. Randomly, when you craft something, it had the chance of being, uncommon, blue, or epic, and that was neat to finally get one, when it was a slightly better version. But if it's a named item, if you're going in to make the first Excalibur for the Arthurian side, it does need more than just RNG, or it shouldn't have too much associated with the actual making of it. More so as acquiring the things to make it can be the RNG, where actually making it has specific things you have to do.
If for a sword the level of Excalibur, for example, so really truly mythic weapon or piece of armor or anything, RNG for the materials, making them hard to get, and the area where you get them, so making it hard to reach the area where they spawn, making their spawn slightly RNG, not fully RNG, but slightly RNG, and then requiring the crafter that will make it to specialize purely in one-handed weapons, one-handed swords, closing himself to anything else, not even being able to gather materials aside from those specific ones that are RNG, and the rest of the time he gets scrap materials. Then I'm okay with that, and then you don't need the RNG in the crafting part. You can have the RNG in the gathering part, and then the rest is dedication and sacrifice.
Well, another thing they can do to balance that, another avenue they can choose to make the crafting and or gathering a little bit less RNG based or a little bit less ridiculous. It could simply be the case that when you create Excalibur or whatever item it is, it exists for 1 month in game. No matter what you do, it exists for 1 month, and only one person on the server can have it.
I'm fine with that also.
Only one can exist at a time, and the mats for it don't respawn until it's broken. So one exists, one guy has it for a month, and then exactly.
And it cannot be repaired or made into a blueprint.
I would say not be repaired, because then someone may be trollish level like Sacrix and not use it.
Well, no, that's why I said it only exists for 1 month, no matter what you do.
It has to have a timer to it.
Yeah.
Like 1 month, you get Excalibur. After that, it transcends the realm or whatever, and someone else can find a shard of Excalibur and reforge it.
You wield Excalibur for a month, and at the end of the month,
it explodes.
A veil
7 shards shoot off in different directions, and you have to make a radar to find them all.
A veil storm spawns on you.
An Excalibur radar.
To destroy Excalibur and just cheering you up in the same time.
The Lady of the Lake takes effect.
You accept that at the end of the month, you will die for having wielded Excalibur.
Anyway, we've gone way too much into crafting. I was not planning on talking about.
It was your last question.
Crafting items and stuff that long.
That's part of the achievements.
Yeah,
the idea that not everybody can have all the achievements.
I think that's what makes
for me,
achievements
it's
kind of
something
rich.
extremely important.
not most achievements should be achievable by everyone, but I think having some achievements that are very difficult to get and some that maybe not everyone will ever get, and Brand just disappeared, is very important. And fortunately, I was about to say I want to thank everybody for coming out, hanging out with us for episode 37, the first episode of season 4, and our video just went all to hell because Brand disconnected for whatever reason, or I'm assuming accidentally, or his internet went out or something. So
Probably.
thank y'all. We will, of course, be having another episode in 2 weeks. I don't remember what the topic was. I'm trying to pull it up real quick, see if I can find what the topic was, because I don't recall. I really need to start pulling this up so I can tell people, because usually somebody asks. Yeah, that's not happening. I think the next thing we were going to do is start looking at doing some faction episodes, looking at the different classes, synergies, realm play styles, and hopefully getting in some other guild leaders to sit in with us as like a fourth person to talk about things. Do Arthurian, then do TDD, then do Viking. So I'll try to get an Arthurian guild leader, then a TDD one, and a Viking one, so on and so forth, and we can talk about these things. If at some point Beta 1 announcement happens, yada, 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 that's what we'll talk about, so on and so forth, etc. Never happening. So, at any rate, thanks for coming. If you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for watching and putting up with our little screwed up video at the end here. And catch you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.